You didn't land on this video by accident. Something pulled you here. And if you've been feeling that quiet sense that something is about to shift, pay attention to that. Because what I'm seeing in these cards is worth staying for. Hey loves, welcome back. I'm Alice. If you're new here, so glad you found your way in. Stay with me all the way through. Every part of this reading has something in it for you. Today we're pulling cards around one theme, stepping out of survival mode and into something that actually feels like your life. The hard chapter is closing. Let's get into it. This card came in first, and I want you to sit with that. The Judgment is not about endings, not punishment, not a reckoning. It is a call, clear, direct. A call that has been waiting for exactly this moment. There has been a chapter in your life that asked more of you than it should have. You kept moving. You kept showing up. And that version of you, the one that held everything together through circumstances that would have broken other people, did extraordinary work. But that chapter is closing. Not slowly, not partially. It is closing. The Judgment arrives as clarity. The kind that cuts through all the just a little longer and once this is over and says, this is the moment, the actual moment, not a rehearsal. This. For some of you, this is already visible. Something has shifted, a situation, a relationship, and even if you haven't let yourself believe it yet, you can feel the ground is different, more solid, less like you're managing and more like you're actually standing. For others, the shift is happening on the inside first. The story that hard times are just the way things are, that story is starting to crack. And underneath it is something you haven't felt in a long time. Something that feels like maybe things are actually about to be different. They are. The hard season is behind you. The new chapter is not approaching from a distance. It is here, right now, already yours. The Judgment opened the door, but the Six of Cups is showing you what has to happen before you walk through it cleanly. This card is not nostalgia. It is warmth. The warmth of a time when you weren't carrying everything alone, before something taught you that depending on people wasn't safe. Because something did teach you that. There was a period where reaching out was met with disappointment or silence, and you quietly decided, I'll figure it out myself. I will become someone who doesn't need that. And you did. Capable, self-sufficient, reliable in ways most people around you couldn't match. But it became the only way you knew how to operate, and it is costing you now. The Six of Cups is not asking you to forget why you built those walls. It is simply showing you that the circumstances that built them are no longer the circumstances you're in. The chapter has changed. The way you move through the world is allowed to change with it. For some of you, support is available right now, genuinely, no conditions attached. And something in you keeps finding reasons to manage alone anyway. This card is noticing that pattern, not judging it, just seeing it clearly and showing it to you. For others, this is about something softer. The permission to not have all the answers before you speak. To let someone in on the parts you're still figuring out. To say, I don't have this handled, and have that be okay. Not a performance of openness. Just the ordinary human thing of having people in your life and letting them be there. The new chapter. The Judgment just announced is not one you carry alone. It never was. The support that is waiting for you is real, and you have more than earned the right to receive it. This card came out, and I want you to really look at it with me. The Four of Pentacles is not greed. It is protection. The worn-out kind, from giving too much for too long and deciding the only way to stop the bleeding was to hold on tighter. You have been the person who shows up, the one who absorbs, the one who says yes when every part of you is already running on empty, because saying no felt like too much to defend. And you called it strength. This card is not calling it strength. It is calling it what it is, a pattern that has been quietly costing you everything. For some of you, this is a specific relationship, a dynamic where you are always the one giving, always adjusting, always softening your needs around someone else's. You've told yourself this is just how love works. This card looks at that story without flinching and says, no, that is how depletion works. For others, this is about the word no. The way it sits in your throat, that flash of guilt, that instinct to wrap it in an apology before it's even out. That reflex was learned. It made sense then. It is not making sense now. It is just keeping you small. This card is pointing towards something simple. You are allowed to be inside the circle of people you care for. Your energy, your time, they have value. They are allowed to be protected. You cannot build a new chapter on constant self-sacrifice. The new life. The judgment announced requires a version of you that has something left, that has been tended to. You matter enough to be worth protecting. This card just said so. This card came out, and I felt the entire reading click into place. The feeling that comes off the Wheel of Fortune is not luck, not a reward for being patient. It is timing. The specific, almost uncomfortable feeling of everything arriving at once, not because you finally did enough, but because this is simply the moment it was always going to happen. There is something you've been working toward, quietly, without much fanfare, in the ordinary, unglamorous days when no one was watching. You didn't stop. You didn't quit. You kept going even in the stretches where keeping going felt pointless. And here is what the Wheel of Fortune understands about that. Nothing was wasted. Not the hard days, not the false starts, not the seasons where nothing seemed to move. All of it was part of the turning. Because the wheel doesn't reward the loudest effort. It doesn't respond to force or to desperation. It responds to consistency, to the quiet decision to keep going when stopping would have been easier. That is what you did. That is why this card is here. For some of you, this lands as relief. A recognition that the timing wasn't wrong before. You weren't behind. You weren't missing something everyone else had figured out. The wheel simply wasn't at this point yet. It is now. For others, this card is an invitation to stop bracing. There is a habit, and some of you will know it immediately, of waiting for the other shoe to drop. Of letting good things arrive and immediately scanning for what's about to go wrong. The Wheel of Fortune is not a trick. It is not building you up before a fall. This is just the wheel at a high point. Let it be that. The Judgment, the Six of Cups, and the Four of Pentacles have all been building toward this. A new chapter. Support flowing in. Energy protected and redirected toward yourself. The Wheel of Fortune is the moment all of that becomes real, not in theory, but in the actual texture of your days. The timing is not something you have to manufacture. It is already here. The only question is whether you're ready to stop waiting for permission and step into it. This card came out and something settled in me. The feeling that comes off the star is not ambition, not the restless energy of trying to become something you aren't yet. It is steadiness. The quiet kind. The kind that shows up not because everything is finally going right, but because something in you has stopped needing it to be. This is not the card of becoming. This is the card of already being. There is a particular kind of exhaustion that comes from spending years performing competence. Not faking it. You are competent, genuinely. But the constant effort of making sure everyone around you can see it. Of preemptively proving yourself before anyone asks. Of walking into rooms already calculating what you need to demonstrate to be taken seriously. It is not dishonest. It is just relentless. And it has been running in the background for so long you may have stopped noticing the weight of it. The star is pointing at what happens when that calculation stops. Not because the world suddenly becomes easier, but because something in you decides, I am not adjusting myself for this room. I know what I know, I do what I do. And the right people will see it, not because I performed it correctly, but because it's real. For some of you, this shows up in work. A moment where instead of preparing the perfect version of your idea, you just say the thing directly. And it lands. Not despite the directness, because of it. The star is showing you that stripped-down version of yourself is not less credible. It is more. For others, this is about relationships. The version of you that people actually need. Not the one that has everything handled. Not the one who never needs anything. But the one that shows up as a real person with real responses. That version is not a liability. It is what makes connection possible. The steadiness this card is pointing to is not something you build. It is something you uncover. It has been underneath the performance the whole time. You already know how to be this person. You have just been too busy proving yourself to notice. Nothing needs to be performed. Nothing needs to be demonstrated. Just show up as the thing you actually are, and watch what that makes room for. This card came out and it didn't surprise me. This is exactly where this reading was always heading. The feeling that comes off the Ten of Cups is not excitement, not the sharp, anxious energy of something almost happening. It is completion. The quiet fullness of something that has genuinely arrived, and knows it, and does not need to prove anything to anyone. This is not almost. This is not someday. This is here. Look at what came before it. The Six of Cups asked you to stop carrying everything alone. The Four of Pentacles asked you to protect your energy. The Wheel of Fortune showed you the timing is real. The Star brought you back to yourself, to the version of you that stops performing and just exists. The Ten of Cups is the answer to all of it. This is what happens when you actually do those things. For some of you, this card lands as confirmation of something you've been sensing but were afraid to trust. The long stretch of difficulty, the season of holding on, of managing, of white-knuckling your way through, is not just pausing. It is ending. Full stop. For others, this is permission to believe it. Because some of you have been through enough that hope itself feels dangerous. Wanting things has cost you before. You've gotten careful. You let yourself want things a little less so the disappointment doesn't reach as deep. This card is asking you to put that guard down. Not recklessly, genuinely. Because the protection you've built against disappointment has also been standing between you and this. The struggle was real. Every card in this reading has acknowledged that. But it is not the whole story. It is not the final chapter. You have done the hard part. You have carried what needed carrying. You have held on through the seasons that required holding on. Now the cards are pointing towards something different, something fuller, something that has your name on it. And it has been waiting, patiently, for exactly this moment. This card came out last. And that placement matters. The feeling that comes off the High Priestess is not mystery. It is recognition. The specific feeling of something you already knew suddenly becoming impossible to unknow. This is not the card of becoming more intuitive. This is the card of stopping the habit of talking yourself out of what you already sense. Something has been shifting in you. Things that used to feel fine have started to feel off. Decisions that used to be easy now sit with you longer. Conversations that once felt normal now leave you tired in a way you can't explain. That is not you falling apart. That is your inner knowing getting louder. For some of you, this shows up in the body. A heaviness before you walk into a room. A lightness when you make the right call. A moment mid-conversation where something goes very quiet and very clear at the same time, and you just know. Not because the evidence was there, because something in you already had the answer. For others, this is about the gap between what you say and what you actually feel. The places where you tell people you're fine and technically nothing is catastrophically wrong, but underneath that, something is waiting. something that knows this version of your life is not the final one. The High Priestess does not rush this. She simply holds the space because she knows it opens when it opens, and it cannot be faked. She came last in this reading for a reason. Every card before her was pointing towards something real, a new chapter, support, protection, timing, the steadiness of just being yourself, the fullness of what's coming. The High Priestess is the part of you that already knew all of it, before the reading, before the cards. The one that recognized each card not as new information, but as something you'd been sitting with quietly for a while, waiting for someone to say out loud. That knowing is not noise. It is not wishful thinking. It is the most reliable thing in you, and it has been trying to get your attention for longer than you've been willing to admit. The knowing is real. It is just finally speaking at a volume you can no longer ignore. Let it. Every card in this reading is saying the same thing from a different angle. The Judgment said, "The old version of you has done its job. Something new is being called forward." The Six of Cups said, "Let people in. The support is real and already there." The Four of Pentacles said, "Your energy has value. You are allowed to be inside the circle of people you protect." The Wheel of Fortune said, "The timing is not something you manufacture. It is already here." The Star said, "Stop performing. The real version of you is the one that makes room for good things." The Ten of Cups said, "Fulfillment is not a fantasy. It is where this is heading." And the High Priestess closed this reading last because that is exactly where she belongs. She is the part of you that recognized every single one of these cards before I turned them over. The thing you've been sensing underneath everything is not wishful thinking. It is real. And it has been real for longer than you've given it credit for. That is not a collection of themes. That is one story, and it belongs to you. The version of you that pushed through alone, that quieted the inner voice, that kept surviving when surviving was the only option available, that version did something extraordinary. It brought you here. Honor that. And then put it down. Because that season served its purpose, and this one is asking something different from you. The shift is already in motion. The wheel is at the right point. The steadiness is already in you. The Ten of Cups is already on its way. Keep moving in the direction you're already going. Stay curious. Stay kind. Stay present enough to recognize the gate when it appears, and walk through it without waiting for more evidence. Your life is changing. Right now. In this moment. Keep moving. Stay open. Receive what is yours. This reading found you for a reason. Don't let it pass through you like a good feeling that fades by tomorrow. Drop a comment right now. Tell me which card landed hardest. Tell me what you're finally ready to let go of. Naming it makes it real. It moves it from something you watched into something you claimed. I read every single comment, without exception. Like this video, subscribe if you haven't yet, not for the algorithm, but for you. Because the energy you bring to claiming what this reading said is the exact energy the Wheel of Fortune responds to. That is not a metaphor. That is how this works. You did not find this reading by accident. The only question is whether you finally let yourself receive it. Sending you so much love. See you in the next one.